Michael Boyle's StrengthCoach.com presents the Strength Coach Podcast, brought to you by Perform Better, the experts in functional training and rehabilitation. PerformBetter.com.
All right, hey everybody, welcome to episode 367 of the Strength Coach Podcast, brought to you by Perform Better, the experts in functional training and rehabilitation. Check them out at PerformBetter.com. I'm your host, Anthony Renna. The show notes are located at StrengthCoachPodcast.com. All right, today on the StrengthCoach.com and NBSC.TV Coach's Corner with Coach Boyle, spoke to him about outsourcing around the gym. What are some things that he doesn't outsource, actually? Talked about Isometrics, when and where and why they are where they are in his programming. And we talked about weight training for speed. For the AG1 Biathletic Greens Hit the Gym with a Strength Coach segment, I have on Dennis Dunphy, the founder of Stick Mobility. We're going to talk all about, you guessed it, mobility today. We're going to define mobility and the factors that might improve it, or can we really improve it? How isometrics play a role, considering the fascia and breathing and its role in mobility. We'll also talk about where does the stick fit in and how to use it. That and so much more coming up from Dennis in a little while. Guys, AG1 Biathletic Greens, 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food sourced, superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens. Guys, visit athleticgreens.com/strengthcoach and get your free year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs today. For the Nomly Maximizing the Member Experience, we're going to have Sumit Seth back on. He's the founder of Nomly, and today's going to talk about the demands of work. It doesn't matter what job you have, really, and prioritizing self-care. Hey guys, did you know that Perform Better does it all when it comes to facility design? And it doesn't matter whether you're opening a small personal training studio, whether you're a member of like a sports performance team at a school, or you have a rehab facility, even just upgrading an existing room. The facility design team will work with you from layout. They do a lot of really cool stuff with the layout stuff to kind of give you a sample of what it might look like, to installation and how to create the facility that will best meet your needs and budget. You can go on performbetter.com. You can check out some really cool videos of some really like high-speed videos of one job. And then they have over 300 locations that they've done around the world. And they do have financing, guys. You can check it all out at performbetter.com. Lots of things to get to, so let's get on the phone with Coach Boyle. All right, now it's time for the StrengthCoach.com and NBSC.TV Coach's Corner with Coach Boyle. You can try StrengthCoach.com out 7 days for free. Totally new format, user-friendly, same great forum as always. Go to StrengthCoach.com for your 7-day free trial. Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Ann. How are you?
All right. Hey, I wasn't planning on asking this, but you just started going on a little bit of a great lesson, little rant on, we're talking about your Airdyne guy was in today, and it's really just a bike shop guy who helps you repair them because they do take a beating. But I liked what you were talking about with the lesson for, you have the new owners. We've talked about this before. You got all your new partners in over the last 6-8 months, and you're trying to teach them how they could save money, and a lot of times people will say, that's why I wanted to talk about this lesson though, because they'll say, these are things you shouldn't be doing. You're Mike Boyle. You shouldn't be putting together an Airdyne bike or doing certain things. But, I know you would disagree because there's a lot of little things like that you can save some dough on that might be unnecessary. So talk to me about how you approach your get the Airdyne serviced, but they also need to be, when you buy them, they need to be put together. So just why is it that you might put them together, but you wouldn't service them?
I would service them if I can. I outsource things that I don't think I can do. But if there are things that I can do, we had a couple of, for instance, I'll buy seats and I'll change the seats when the seats are no good. If it's something that's just turn a wrench, and sometimes people say, oh, it's not a good use of your time.
Yeah.
I think in a business, it's a really good use of your time, because I can remember, and I've told this story on the podcast before, I can remember being impressed by the millionaires that I worked for welding the broken railing on and realizing the millionaires that I worked for fixing, unclogging a toilet themselves. Those things made an impression on me in terms of being a businessman. I think there's a lot of people who they think of business as create a publicly traded company, sell it to somebody else, blah, blah, blah. That's not small business. Small business is you doing the things yourself. If you look at it and think, I can do that in 5 minutes. But if I outsource it, I'm going to pay for an hour. I might even pay for 2 hours. For instance, the guy that fixes our Kaiser machine might have to come out. We might get charged for an hour of labor and an hour of travel just for him to come and look at the piece, which means if he comes out and works on something that I can fix in 5 minutes, I've now paid for 2 hours of his specialized time. And let's just say it's $100 an hour. I've spent $200 and I can do it in 5 minutes. So what we started talking about is I've been teaching Dan and Steve and Kevin and these guys, hey, here's how you fix, if the Kaiser batteries need to be changed, here's how we change the batteries. If this clip breaks, here's how we change this clip. We keep some of the stuff around that's easy to do. We buy it. For instance, we might buy things from Kaiser. We fix them ourselves. We're going to fix as much ourselves as we possibly can, and we're going to learn how to do it effectively, because if you don't, then you're setting the trend. It's like when you ever work with big companies. I've worked with big companies, and I say, hey, can you send me this? And the next day I get it FedEx to me, and I realize they paid like $25 to send me, a T-shirt or to send me something, a wristband or whatever it was. And you realize that's people spending money that's not theirs. And it's so easy to do. It's so easy for somebody to think, who cares? Not my money. And if you develop a culture of not my money, eventually you won't have any money. Eventually you'll look at it. When you think about, because we've used the restaurant analogy we talked about unreasonable hospitality, but there's a reason fitness facilities and restaurants and places like this, that they kind of come and go, and that they go through peaks and valleys. And a lot of it is because people lose track of the fact that every dollar is your dollar. Every dollar that gets spent is a dollar that's not profit. Right? So I look at that and think, if I'm hanging around the gym, then say, for instance, today, Pat and I are working with the girls in the same group. Pat's perfectly competent. I'm nothing more than his assistant helping him out. And I think, hey, I can take 5 minutes and fix that bike seat, or I can take 5 minutes and do that. Why would I not do it? And if you put yourself above it, your staff then desires to become the person who can put themselves above it. Do you know what I mean? Like you want to get to that level of status. You knew it. You're in the restaurant business, right? If you get somebody who's like, whatever, I don't wash glasses, or I don't pick up glasses, or I don't do this. Somebody can't wait till, I can't wait till I can be a manager and not have to do that. I want our people, like our owners now, my new young partners, to look at it and realize, no, our job is picking up trash outside. Our job is, if something isn't in the dumpster, making sure it gets in the dumpster. Like the attention to detail stuff starts with us. And so that's why we do it.
Yeah. And I think when you look at the mission of what you're doing, the role is like you're trying to make people healthy and happy and stronger and more athletic, and even throwing out the garbage is doing that. Like they're having a great experience at MBSC. So it's not really position specific, those things. It's really for the overall picture. And I think a lot of times people they misread the E-Myth, like, oh, the E-Myth is get employees to do the lower level stuff. Well, in the beginning of the book, Michael Gerber talks about you have to do each of those roles and know each of those roles like the back of your hand, and make your playbook, your manual. And what happens is you need to go through all of that to kind of know what the staff is going through also. And then look, bottom line is shit happens. People don't show up. People are in traffic. People get fired. People quit. So then there's, now everybody's got to kind of do a little bit of something else. So I just like that you were, that it was a contrast from what a lot of people talk about.
Yeah. And I think you're trying to set the right example. And I think in a lot of big companies, people set the wrong example. It's like, big, corner office, windows, all of these things that people aspire to that are just sort of the trappings of success. And that's what everybody wants versus really wanting to be successful. And I say it all the time. I don't think that business is that difficult, but I think people make it really difficult because they can't see the big picture. I want our employees, and I always say, I very rarely use the word employees. I want the people that I work with to look at me and think that I'm a good example of how I want them to behave, whether it's on the floor, whether it's opening, whether it's closing, whatever it is, that I'm going to try to do the job right. And I'm going to try to go the extra mile, and I'm going to try to pay attention to the details. And that's what I'm going to ask them to do.
Absolutely. Good stuff. Coach, I wanted to ask you about Mia. For people that don't know Mia was a good friend of Mike's son, and they would always train together. And she was in the Mike's youth training product, and she just had her first game at Dartmouth, right? Wait, Dartmouth Dartmouth. Okay, and I know you're super proud of her, but I wanted to see if you're a little more proud of yourself from the perspective of, here's a young lady who you've seen come through the ranks, like as a young person, and who's not your kid, right? Like Marky, hey, that's his dad. People could say, Mark, when Mark had ACL, Mike was on a mission to find everything out he could about ACL. That was his kid. And great. That was awesome. But Mia's really a product of the MBSC system. Does it make you a little more proud about the fact that, she went through, she's a great kid, and she's now, starting at her college career?
Oh yeah, to me, I actually felt like I was watching my own kids last night, truthfully.
Yeah.
I both sat here. She can hear. She said I was yelling at the TV. I was yelling at the TV. But yes, it really is. And she is different in the sense that she's almost like one of my kids. She's been around forever. She's been with us literally constantly for 7 years, probably. And so, yeah, and then Michaela's like teaching her, it's her little sister. And so to see her go to Dartmouth, the fact that she got into Dartmouth, right? That in and of itself, I mean, people would kill to get their kid into Dartmouth. And then to think to get your kid to go to Dartmouth and to be a varsity athlete at Dartmouth, and then to look and realize last night for her, she's a freshman. She's playing on the second line. She's killing penalties. I mean, she did everything but play on the power play. So I'm really, really proud of her. And I love to see, you love to see things work, right? You love to see things work the way that you'll hope they're going to work, because it reinforces for everybody else. I tell people, it goes back to the same things we talk about, sort of success is easy, but it's hard, right? These are the same things. I can tell you how to be successful. I can show you how to be successful, but you got to show up and do the work. I can remember sending her the Genius in All of Us quote that I like. I love the quote, and it says something if I'd known we were going to have this conversation, I'd have it right with me. But it says something like, people are going to have to think you're different. People are, because you're going to give up a lot of things. You're going to give up maybe dances, and you're going to go to practice, and you're going to go and shoot pucks. And there are all these things that you're going to do that everybody else isn't going to do, that they'll think is a little bit strange. But then when they look at the outcome, you think, if I said to somebody else, hey, if you do all this, your kid will get into Dartmouth and be able to play. But the flip side is, she was on the first line of our Pee Wee 1 boys team 7 years ago, whatever it was. I knew she was going to play in college. I told people that a long time ago. I told her dad and her mom that a long time ago. She'll play in college somewhere, somehow, because she's always been exceptional. But what's more exceptional about her is the work ethic part, the fact. But even with her, she's been working out with my Olympic girls since she was 15 years old, because the fact that, like, she's not my kid, but she kind of is. So she gets the benefit of being able to be in that group. So she's been able to be really, I mean, probably positively role modeled in a way that she doesn't even really appreciate at this point. There'll probably come a time when she'll look and think, oh my God, I can't believe that Mike let me work out with those girls when I was 15 years old.
Yeah.
So she's in a situation where you're seeing what people are doing, the Alex Carpenters of the world and Megan Keller and, last summer, with Charlotte North and Sam Puzo, you're literally with the best athletes in the world and you're in high school and you haven't even played a college game yet. So she's had a lot of opportunity, but she's probably earned a lot of opportunity.
Sure. And I, watching kind of timely last night, Connor Bedard was his first game for the Chicago Blackhawks. And, they made a big deal because obviously he's playing the Pittsburgh Penguins and Sidney Crosby is the opposing center. And they just talked about how everybody's talking about what a great kid this kid is. Besides, he's an amazing player, but he was talking about how he would study Sidney Crosby's interviews and the way he was off ice too. So there's something to like Mia being in those situations with the Alex Carpenters and those folks that you also learn so much, never mind about hockey, but about life.
Yes. And I think a lot of that stuff, it carries over.
Absolutely. Mike, Bob Aleo had a great start of a thread. Folks are diving into one of the oldest methods of strength training, isometrics. Let me say this, it's not overrated and it's not a game changer. That's a very Bob Aleo tweet. He said, remember, it's joint angle specific and appears that reach is 10 to 15 degrees in each direction. No bang for your buck. For me, rehab, yes, 100%. You said, I think the key is Al Vermeil, what Al Vermeil liked to say, a thread of everything in your program. I was never a fan of ISO because of joint angle info, but we now do a bit, 2 days of one phase for both variety and tendon effect, lots of ISOs in rehab. Though, what exactly are you doing? Can you give everybody what phase is that, and what are you doing for ISOs?
So usually for us, it's a third phase, and we would be combining a little bit of eccentric work and a little bit of isometric work in that phase. So we would be thinking basically one isometric hold for every movement pattern effectively. So we might do a split squat hold. We might do our Nordic ISO. We might do a ring row ISO, something, because I do think and this goes back, and this is where I probably would disagree slightly with Bob. If you look at years ago, I'm talking 80s, this is where kind of Cal's triphasic thing came from. They had basically said that the ideal situation for a strength gain was something like, I'm going to make up the numbers, but 70% concentric, 20% eccentric, 10% isometric. I think you want that 10% isometric in there because one thing we do know, the body adapts to stress and we want to vary the type of stress. I think if you're just doing the same kind of concentric exercise, the same tempo, the same rate up and down, your rate of adaptation will probably slow. That's why I think at times we're going to add slower eccentric emphasis stuff. So I think you want to have that little isometric piece in there too. But what put it over the top for me was the tendon health research. So you start looking at this and people saying, now, wait a second. And it was a big but and now we know that this can also potentially produce some positive changes in tendons. So now you think, oh, there's another reason that I probably should make sure I've got that, say 10%. Because if you think 10% is 1 week out of your 10 weeks, for us, it's actually more like 2 days and 3 weeks, so it probably ascends more to 15% than 10. But I think it's something that should be in there. And I just used Al's quote because I think Al was talking more about when people were talking about sort of kind of conjugate versus block. And he was like, well, you probably should be more conjugate or concurrent. You want to keep some power stuff. I take that one step further in my mind and think Al was right, even though he was talking about something different.
Yeah.
And thinking, hey, there should be a little bit of this in there. And Bob is so much like me that it's crazy, but he might even be a little more rigid than I am in terms of slow to change. That was a good thing about Bob. He'll change. But he's like me. He's not fast. There's no knee-jerk reaction. He's not going to see some new program and suddenly decide, oh, I'm doing that.
Yeah.
Someone's going to really even with this, he'll probably listen to this and he'll think about it and he'll think, maybe I'll try a little of that just to see. And that's what makes him good. That's why he's good at his job, because he always is, even if he's not changing, he's listening.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He's definitely, and he's an artist. So it's gonna be it might be part of something. He's gonna look at it first and see and maybe play around with it, but he's not gonna get too crazy and change his style completely. I think it was interesting with that for me when you just said that answer was I kind of was like, well, it's 10% of one phase. Why not other phases? Why not every phase?
Because then it would end up being 30 or 40% if you looked at of the total volume. If you said, hey, I do it every week and we do it for 2 days out of the week, now it's becoming, if we said it's 50% of that week, but that week is 1/10. So now you bring it down. So it ends up, I think, and the other part for us is it's really hard. One of the things we realize, particularly when we've got somebody there for 10 weeks or for 12 weeks, is there's a lot that we want to get done. And sometimes it's not, you can't do everything. You can't get everything in. And it was interesting. So Pat Stefanski and I were playing around because with our Olympic level girls or, whatever, our international level women, we have them a lot more. We probably have them, I would say 40 some odd weeks out of the year. And we can do a lot more. And we talked about this in yesterday's staff meeting, is that sometimes you have to remember that we do have these kind of small subgroups where we can mess around a little bit more. I said, sometimes we're so into, hey, this is our 10-week program and this is how we do it. And then if we're going to do it, we just repeat it over again. And then when you look and think, if I have someone for 40 weeks, I can get off the path a little bit more and not worry about what the effect of that might be. Whereas if I have someone for 10, it's like, no, I can't mess with this because I may not know what my outcome is going to be.
Yeah. Have you ever tried it? I think, I don't know. I thought it was you guys, but early on, almost in a phase one to get people to understand those end ranges. So for example, the split squat or the bottom of a goblet squat, or just kind of holding those positions to understand what they are.
It's funny, we did, but what we realized is most people who hadn't trained really mentally reject isometrics. It's like, they kind of look at you like this, this sucks to begin with because I'm sore and I'm doing new stuff. And now you're telling me to just stand here for, you know what I mean? So what we realized is it didn't work well. Even we were trying to do eccentric emphasis stuff the same way with some of our beginners, 5-second lowers. And then people were like, what are we doing? Sometimes you just need, it's like, hey, let's just start with some vanilla ice cream. And, and we'll give them that. And then maybe we can give them chocolate chip. And then maybe we can give them Rocky Road. But, if we start with something a little more exotic, then the acceptance / adoption may take a little bit more time. And you may lose some people.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. I did some TV stuff a couple months ago, and one of the things was the core, and the whole theme of it was to advance your core exercise, and I mentioned that the plank is the most boring exercise in the world, and they started laughing. I was kind of like, I'm not really joking. Right. I think it's stupid, and I'm obviously following Stu McGill's lead on the 10-second planks and nobody holds something for a minute anyway. But but I kind of thought that was funny. It just reminded me of and it's so who wants to sit
on 30 for that reason.
Yeah. Mike Godagno had a quote. I've coached 2 guys under 10 seconds, 100 in the 100 meter, and neither of them lifted. That was from Dan Pfaff, and it kind of had a little bit of a, people were, one guy, the guru anaerobic, which I thought he had some good stuff, but he was like, I don't believe this for 1 second. They did strength training somewhere. We've talked about this before. Tony Holler, when you first started listening to Tony Holler, my thoughts are though, I think sometimes we misunderstand where somebody's lens might be. I think what we've talked about a lot is not super heavy strength training only to get somebody faster, but But to start to kind of state that they're not doing any weight training, or maybe the weight training, and that was this guy's argument, Guru Anaerobic, that he said they mentioned a couple guys, and they said they ran faster. They did run faster after weight training, though. Those were before weight training. Great, they ran it, but then they got better when they did some weight training, and they both supposedly admitted that. So, what were your thoughts on this thread?
Well, I think one, I'd love to ask Dan, but I have heard Dan say that before, and I do think there are some people. There are some really fast people who either have not lifted weights or have been reluctant weightlifters. And Carl Lewis, you go back, read anything about Carl Lewis, they will tell you that he was at best a reluctant weightlifter. He was never on any strength program that you would look at and say, hey, that was a really good strength program. He was like maybe at his best, a leg extension, leg curl, leg press, calf raise kind of guy, and probably not really pushing himself even at those. So I just think, and it's interesting because it plays into somebody who's talking about the whole Squattober thing. The problem with our profession is that people can't accept the fact that they might be wrong. They're so heavily invested in their belief system, not in the training as much as their particular belief system, that they do. It's like and I don't know the Guru Anaerobic, whoever, I don't know who the guy is, but it's as if them saying, no, Dan Paff's a liar. I know these guys. It's like, I don't know. Yeah, I would wonder what your experience is with world-class sprinters. I'd wonder how many sub-10 guys have you actually worked with on a day-to-day basis. And I know that Dan wouldn't just throw that out there. And I know with Tony had said, I have guys who don't lift. My sprinters, I don't. He said, I don't care if they lift. The football kids lift. My other guys don't lift. They do, he calls it X factor, which is basically plyos. And he's like, we do plyos and we run, and guys get really fast. So what I wish people would do is, rather than argue, I wish they'd investigate. I wish they'd think more about everybody's immediate reaction is that person's wrong and I'm right. Instead of sitting there and thinking to themselves, like I did, and say, all right, beliefs aside, what am I learning from this opportunity? When I started listening to Tony, it was like, okay, beliefs aside, what is this telling me? What it was telling me is we're not sprinting nearly enough. And that maybe what we're doing from a strength training standpoint is helping us, again, with size, and maybe helping us with injury prevention, but maybe isn't having the effect that I thought it was. And I think everybody should be willing to have those kind of conversations with themselves about their own bias, about looking at that and saying, hey, am I caught up in my own thing here? Because it was like the Squattober thing. People, one guy said, of course you don't like Squattober, you don't like squats. And it's kind of like, that's not the point. The point is, I think it's dumb that you're going to squat every day for a month for whatever, for attention. I don't know what you're doing it for, but I just think it's kind of a dumb idea. But I just would like people to be more introspective as it relates to their own beliefs.
Love it. Yeah. What if they goblet squatted every day? Would you care?
I would still care. Yeah. I think doing it doesn't it doesn't make any sense. Yeah, I don't have any idea. And I don't even know. I guess I probably should look at what the purpose or the derivation or whatever. I don't know what even started it. I remember I get aggravated when I see MBSC coaches, people that we've educated and we've trained who are doing Squattober. It makes my blood boil. And I think I've said that on the podcast before, but I get angry. I'm just like, God, did we not teach these people anything? Why would they just be stupid lemmings and jump on some dumb strength and conditioning bandwagon because other people were doing it? That's, to me, that's who you definitely do not want to be. You do not want to be somebody who jumps on the bandwagon, to be one of the guys or one of the girls. Doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I hear you. All right. Well, we'll let you go on that note, Coach. Thanks for doing this, and we'll talk to you next time.
All right. Great. Thanks, Dan.
Welcome to Namli's Maximizing the Member Experience segment. My name is Sumit Seth, and I'm the co-founder of Namli. In our last segment, we unpacked how we could better manage our team and members in a crisis. And today, I wanted to dig deeper on the topic of taking care of our own well being, and not just in a crisis, but overall. For running a business is hard, and our plates are always full with client needs, team needs, family needs, and just business responsibilities in general, leaving little to no room for our own self care. And I would argue that this is the most important thing to do, for as the saying goes, we need to fill our own cup to be able to pour from it. Today, let's explore some simple strategies to manage stress, combat those sneaky negative thoughts, and break free from the grip of the past. When the going gets tough, stress often shows up uninvited. If it makes you feel better, you're not alone in the struggle. We all stumble, and what really matters is how we pick ourselves up. Now that defines us. Begin by taking a deep breath and grounding yourself. Incorporate short, mindful exercises like meditation, or simply deep breathing, or even going out for a long walk or hike. And keep those phones away. These practices anchor you in the present, allowing you to tackle challenges with clarity and grace. Overwhelm is a familiar foe, but it's not unbeatable. Organize tasks, delegate when possible, and avoid spreading yourself too thin. With a structured plan in place, you'll feel empowered and in control, even amid chaos. Now let's break down those walls of self-doubt. Negative self-talk can be a real buzzkill for our mindset. When the storm hits, it's easy to let those self-deprecating thoughts creep in. But here's the truth. You're your own biggest supporter. Start by recalling the mountains you've climbed in the past, the obstacles you overcame, and draw strength from your past accomplishments. Recognize that these are negative thoughts, and as they say, conquer these fear with fear. The first fear stands for false evidence appearing real, and the other fear stands for face everything and rise. One thing that works well for me is to rewrite the narrative into uplifting affirmations. A simple swapping out of internal talk from "I can't handle this" to "I am capable and resilient, and most people will give in, but not me." This does wonders. Surround yourself with positivity. Seek out mentors, peers, or resources that inspire you. Remember, your mindset is your most potent weapon. By mastering your thoughts, you become a force to be reckoned with, navigating challenges with confidence. Finally, let's escape the clutches of the past. Dwelling on past mistakes can be a real energy vampire. While reflection is essential, getting stuck in the past can hinder progress. Instead, adopt a forward-focused perspective. Acknowledge the situation, extract lessons, and shift your focus to actionable steps. Ask yourself, what can I do right now to make things better? By channeling your energy into solutions, you'll propel yourself forward with purpose. Okay, let's recap the takeaways for cultivating your unwavering mindset. Managing stress begins with anchoring yourself in the present. Combat self-doubt by rewriting your internal dialogue and surrounding yourself with positivity. Conquer fear with fear. And remember, the key is to channel your energy towards solutions. Move on from the past and propel yourselves forward. By nurturing your mindset, even when it's most difficult, you're not just better equipped to face challenges, but you're setting an inspiring example for everyone around yourself. Till next time, this is Sumit Seth, co-founder of Namli. For more info, please check out namli.com and schedule a free demo to discover how we can help in centralizing your entire client communication in one place and to have your entire team on the same page too. Use the referral code StrengthCoach to get started on a free 30 days, no strings attached trial.
All right, now it's time for the Hit the Gym with the Strength Coach segment, brought to you by AG1 by Athletic Greens. 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens. I'm using it every day. I've gotten away from using it in the morning to kind of a pre-workout, or really when I'm just feeling like I'm a little tired or a little down. I actually use it. I drink it at dinner if there's not enough vegetables too. So, but they're going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. Go to athleticgreens.com/strengthcoach. All right. Today I have on Dennis Dunphy. Dennis is, and I got to see this firsthand, and a movement aficionado, and he loves helping people move and feel better. He is the founder and creator of Stick Mobility. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. He's a sports nut. We just spent at least 5 minutes talking about hockey, both of our number one love. It's why when you see this clip today for the marketing stuff, you will see I'm wearing an Islander shirt and an Islander hat. I hate the Penguins, and they got a great acquisition this year, and so I have to bring it up again that I am pissed. But Dennis, thanks for doing this, bud.
Thanks, Anthony. Thanks for having me on, brother. Well, speaking of the Penguins, let's make the playoffs this year since we missed out last year.
There you go.
But, yeah.
I had the opportunity when I was speaking in Long Beach. I made sure I went and saw your hands-on Stick Mobility hands-on. I loved it. I thought I was really impressed at how much was going on. And I talked to you earlier. I said, it seems like we've had this mobility, almost like a movement over the last 10 years where people realize, look, this is stretching. It's not working. We're not doing it right. It used to be just static stretching and dynamic stretching. And, we have more implements, Stick Mobility being one. We're using foam rolls and massage guns, and there's, fascial considerations. Now we have LDOA, we have certifications like functional range conditioning, and that are, lots of similar concepts, overlapping concepts that I noticed when I took your class with Stick Mobility. So this whole thing is, hey, can we, and it's a question we all get, can we really improve mobility? So that's what we're going to try to tackle today. But I got to get you to define mobility, because the way you're defining it really isn't this used to be, hey, flexibility is with the muscles and mobility is being able to do things at the joint. And I'm paraphrasing, but let's talk. Can you define mobility for us?
For us, it's really simple. It's just simply the ability to move, right? I think we try to overcomplicate things a little too often, but mobility is simply that. It's just your ability to move. If something's being thrown at you, do you have the ability to dodge it, right? But mobility is a combination. It's flexibility. That's one thing we always hear. Everybody always tells us the same thing. Oh, I got to create more flexibility.
Yeah.
Flexibility is a component of mobility, right? Mobility is flexibility, neuromuscular control, and strength. You get those three things together, now you have mobility, right? We want to be able to understand and be able to control our movements, usable, what's accessible to us. And I think what's interesting is when I work with clients who for years have had mental barriers due to injuries and people telling them that they can't do this and they shouldn't do that and they don't do this. When we give them different feedback or something different to think about, right? A different task, and get the brain thinking about something else. It's amazing what people can actually do, right? So we do with the sticks, or other objects. We'll do avoidance games, right? So we'll say, hey, don't let me touch you with the stick, right? And what ends up happening is you get people that were told you can't squat, you shouldn't rotate. All of a sudden, they're doing all those things. They're squatting, they're rotating, because we've got their brain now focused on something different, right? And now we've removed those mental barriers, those inhibitions, those walls have been built, right? And we've just taken those walls and just let's tear them down. We record the video and then we play it back. We say, look at all the things you just did. But we gave you something else. We gave you a new focus. We gave you a task. And your task was simply to do objective A. And your body organized itself and went, okay, well, if this is my task, I've got to accomplish it. And all of a sudden that person that was told that I can't squat is like just dropping down into a squat. So for us, it's that ability to kind of mentally just change people's thought process on what is mobility and how can they achieve it.
And the reason why I was saying it's partially so different from my perspective is I haven't really heard anybody talk about the strength piece. I've heard about the motor
Mhm.
control before. Obviously, we've heard about flexibility, but can you go a little deeper on the strength? Because I think there's this idea of strength, and we just naturally think if we're going to explain this to our clients, we think strength. They said, okay, so you're saying if I just do strength training and full range of motion movements, I will be more mobile. What exactly do you mean about strength within the context of this definition?
Yeah, so for us, we want to be able to express strength and apply force in any shape or posture we're in, right? And we're coinciding that also with breathing, right? So we want to make sure that the person is not bracing and holding their breath. You had mentioned functional range conditioning, and Dr. Spina talks about that, right? If you get into an end range position, you should be able to express force, right? And exhibit strength. And for us, that is a big part of it because we love isometrics. And I think people with isometrics has been forgotten about, right? A lot of people, because it's not sexy. There's really nothing to sell with isometrics, right? You can tell somebody, push on this, pull on this. Okay. But isometrics is the foundation for us to build really strong bodies, strong connective tissue, strong and resilient joints. And that for us is when we use the stick. We use the stick to help people get into a posture or a shape position. And then we simply use the stick to push or pull against to allow that person to actually start to understand, whoa, wow, I can actually be strong in this position. And we want to exhibit that. And that's the big difference between our traditional stretching that you see most people do, what people have been doing. It's very passive. And for us, it's like, what are you doing right there? You're not making any changes. There's nothing. You are passive stretching does work. It just takes a really long, long, long time, right? And that's the one thing people don't have is a long, long time. So for us, it's okay, get into a shape, get into a posture, and let's add some strength in that position. And yes, there's going to be some cramping that takes place, right? We get that all the time. People are like, oh my God, I'm cramping because you're using tissues in a position that they're just not used to being used in. So once the body understands, okay, you want this on a repeatable level, okay, now that cramping starts to dissipate. And for us, it's being able to express that strength in those end range positions, whether that's pulling or pushing or rotating.
So let's just jump to the stick because
Mhm,
now I'm interested and I'm kind of feeling like, okay, so you were seeing this, you have this belief, right? I'm with
mhm.
you on it. The strengthening at these end ranges. Where was the problem? Where was the pain that the stick is solving? Did you say, you know what? I don't feel like we can do these end range positions just out on our own. I'm gonna just let me grab this wall. Then it was like, okay, I'm gonna grab a stick. Where did this come from?
So Neil and I used to do stick stretching with a chiropractor over in Santa Cruz, California. And so he was showing us how he uses a rattan stick to help his patients stretch. And Neil and I were like, "Wow, this is fascinating. This is amazing." But then we realized, well, for us, it's much more about strength training to become mobile as opposed to just stretching. So then we said, okay, let's start to implement the isometrics and really teach people what leverage and stability in physics is in movement. Because physics has to be understood with what we're trying to accomplish. And for people, like you said, it's hard for people to get into posture sometimes because you try to get into a posture that's not accessible for you, and your body says, no, 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 I don't want to go there. So for us, the stick gives us a way to utilize leverage to overcome that resistance to get into a certain position or a certain posture. And then with the stick, we also have stability. Now the brain says, okay, we're stable, like everything's good. And now I can hold this position. Now we can maintain this position, we can maintain this posture, and then we can start to express strength in this position. So then we can start to really feel those changes taking place.
Where did the idea really start to formulate for having a stick that bends?
Well, so that was the nice thing was when we started by using PVC, right? And when we were pushing and pulling on the stick, that's what made all the difference in the world, right? The pushing away from your midline and the ability to pull into the midline, contract regressive, progressive tissues. That was really what really started to seal the deal on really making the big difference. The problem with the PVC is it was really light. It didn't really it gave a decent amount of resistance, but we were like, okay, we just need a little bit more resistance. We just tune it up just a notch, right? And so that's where our business partners designed the finished product that you see today. That's a little bit heavier and a lot more resistant. So that way, when you're doing the pushing and pulling, you're going to get some really good activation through the muscles.
Was there any, this might be a stupid question, but was there any consideration of different levels of resistance with the stick?
No, not really. We just wanted something that was going to be a little bit stronger than your traditional PVC that you can get at a hardware store. We know that there's different strength levels for people. They may be injured, things like that. So for us, it's just finding ways to regress. That may be changing a body pot, that may be changing a lever length, maybe changing a body position, stick angle. We'll find a way to alter the position or adjust it to adapt to the person's skill set that they have.
Yeah, I will say one of the things as well that I was really impressed with was the nuance of the positions of whether of the hand, of pressing, towards each other, pushing out. There was a lot of nuance is when you talked about earlier about physics as well. Do you feel like what's the, obviously we should know as much as we can, but what part of physics do you feel like we really should know to understand mobility a little bit better?
Angles, angles and levers. I mean, it's just when you ask the average trainer, let's think about strength training for instance, right? If you ask the average trainer, how do you regress or progress an exercise? They're simply going to say, change the weight. And you're like, okay, if we change the lever length or the lever of the tool that we're using, that makes all the difference in the world. It doesn't have to be the weight itself, right? And it's getting people to understand, look, if I hold a 5-pound dumbbell against my chest here, it's 5 pounds. But once I take that dumbbell and I extend it one arm's length away from me, that dumbbell is not 5 pounds in relation to my body. The weight hasn't changed. My lever's changed, right? And these are the simple things that where people are moving a box in their garage, right? And they hurt themselves. And you say, okay, what were you doing? And they're like, well, I was picking up this box. Okay, and you say, okay, well, were you close to it? Were you creating compression on it? No, I just reached out. I overextended. Okay, physics just kicked your butt, right? Because that box that you maybe was 10 pounds. Well, you overextended to reach for it. So that box is no longer 10 pounds. That box was 30 pounds on your back in that extended position. And your back said, nah, I just don't have that. I don't have that capacity. I'm not ready for that. Right. So it's just teaching people, look, if one angle decreases, the opposing angle increases and vice versa. Right. And so these are just the basic elements of physics that, I tell coaches, I say, look, you don't have to have a PhD in physics, but at least understand the basic facts of it and what gravity is constantly doing to us. And when we pick up, like for instance, a plank position, right? We see people like, oh, I do planks all the time. But yet I see that same person vertically stacked. They're not stacked. Their hips may be in front, their hips may be back. Well, if you vertically can't stack, then how do I expect you to go horizontal and have that same control when horizontally gravity has so much more surface area to play with? Man, gravity's all like, all right, now I can really pull against you. Vertically, it doesn't have much surface area, right? So it's just giving these simple things that we just damn, like I said earlier, we tend to overcomplicate things. And sometimes for us, it's let's pull back and let's look at this from just a much more simplistic level. Because before we started creating all these pieces of equipment and all these systems, humans did pretty well on their own, right? And so what did they have? We had each other, you grappled, you wrestled, things like that. But you did farm work, you were out, cutting, chopping wood, doing things on a daily basis. So we just dealt with that. And now, unfortunately, today, since we tend to be a little bit more creature comforts, a little bit more uh, technologically advanced, so physically, we just don't have the skill sets that our generations previously had.
Absolutely. If you anybody who has listened or watched the Netflix show about blue zones or read the book, they'll know that Sardinia is one of the places, and one of the hypotheses is that it's basically on a hill and there's no exercise there, but they walk everywhere and it's uphill and downhill constantly. So that's obviously a different situation than most of us have. And it's funny that you're talking about the resistance arm. And I talk to people that usually in the first session, because I do deal with a lot of golfers, and it's not a joke, but it is kind of a joke where the number one injury in golf happens in the parking lot when people are reaching for their bag in their trunk,
Right?
right?
Yeah.
And I use the example. I'm like exactly what you said. I usually give them a 5 or 10 pound body bar, and I have them hold it by their, like halfway up, and I say lift it straight up, do an arm raise, and they do, and it's fine. And then I have them grab it on the end, and they could hardly do it. And I said, did it get heavier? No. Well, there's your resistance arm. This is why I want you to keep that weight close to your body. I like that you brought that example up. So there's a couple things that I was impressed about, your hands-on, and I talked about nuance, and we're talking about the resistance, like using that resistance. So I do want to get to breathing, and I want to get to fascia, but I want to ask you about the type of resistance. I think you were saying anywhere from 25 to 40%. Does that change, or talk to me about the amount of pressure you're asking most of the time for some of the exercises?
So typically, when we're doing our active stretching or isometric stretching, we're just sitting at about 30% perceived rate of effort. We're sitting in that wheelhouse. We're not trying to exhaust the tissues. We're just trying to create just enough stimulus so that way the muscle fibers and the connective tissue are integrated together. Because the big thing that we know that is in passive traditional stretching, only the connective tissue is getting under tension, right? The muscle is really not doing anything. So that's why we add that little bit of isometric component. And now you get that nice synergy between the two areas, the muscles and the connective tissue working together. And that's where you get those big changes. So for us, it's sitting in that 20-30% range. If we're asking for really high up, so if we're using the stick and we're saying, okay, now I want you to drive the stick into the wall or the floor, the ceiling at 70-80% of your max effort. This is just strength training. We're getting somebody into a position, and now we're trying to make this person as strong as possible in this position. So we're going to say, okay, let's start at 70-80% to work on that increased strength, but build that stamina. But we can ask them all the way up to 100% max effort, right? So if we're doing the Dunphy squat where we're pushing the stick up to get them into the squat, I can ask that person, hey, give me every ounce of force that you can produce and give me one repetition of that squat, right? Because maybe that athlete is in mid-season and I don't want to externally load that athlete with a barbell. I can say, okay, I still want that strength training. So I'll say, okay, give me 3 working sets of Dunphy squats at about 80%, 90% of your max effort. Or I can say, okay, we're gonna do a 1 rep max. Give me literally everything you got, every ounce of strength that you can force that you can produce, and we're gonna just do 1 rep. So there's different real areas of exertion that we're asking for. We do a priming zone, which is about 50% of your max effort. So if we're trying to get arm lines ready to do a bench press, right? Because when you're doing a bench press, you're trying to literally break the bar, right? Or that's what great power lifters are doing when they're doing the bench press. So we use the stick to isolate the same activation, right? So we'll have the person shorten the stick and try to actually break it at about 50% of their max effort as they extend out with their arms and pull back. Okay. So we'll have them do that about 50% of their max effort for 5, 6 repetitions. Then they take a break, and then I'll say, okay, there's the bench press setup. Let's go over and hit it up. And then the feedback is always, wow, that first set felt great. The first rep felt great versus traditionally when we get under the bar, no matter what type of warm up we do, we've all done it. That first few reps is always just a little choppy, right? So priming with the stick, whether it's bench press, deadlift, or things like that, it just locks everything together, connects everything. So that way, when you go to the external load, the very first rep on is nice and smooth and locked in.
Absolutely. Good stuff. I want to go over the Dunphy squat. Basically, if I have the stick in front of me and I need something above it, whether that's a ceiling or the top of a squat rack, I'm going to push that stick up into that. So I get that isometric hold, and then I would do my squat from there. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Because what's interesting is how many times have we tried to get people into a deep squat with a nice spinal extension, and whether it's a goblet squat or whatever other type of methodology, and so we put the person through it and we see a slight improvement, but then all of a sudden it's back to the way it was before. You're like, oh my god, it's like I keep hitting my head against the wall and nothing's happening, right? So after we had started with stick mobility, I was at home the one night and I was like, how do we get something like this to actually stick permanently? Like, how do we get this to engage where the person actually understands what's taking place? And for me, my deep squat has always been really good. So I've never had an issue with it. But I took the stick and I put it in the door jamb. I was standing in the doorway and I put it up into the door jamb and I pushed. And as soon as I did that, my whole posterior chain just lit right up. And I could feel my feet just lock into the floor. And right away, I was like, oh, damn, that feels great. So then I kept pushing and I literally just sat down into the squat, squeezed my elbows in to get that mimic that nice compression to get that T-spine extension. And I was sitting at the bottom going, I think I'm onto something here, right? So I did a few reps of that and I thought to myself, I go, wow, if I have that reaction and my deep squat is really good,
Yeah.
what are my clients going to have, right? So literally the next day I went in and started implementing that with my clients, saying, here, let's check this out, let's try this out. And literally within a few repetitions, you'd see my clients just dropping straight down in the deep squat and they're holding it. And I'm like, wow. And what was nice is you keep doing those on a regular scale, but then we were starting to see the results actually stay, right? So that way when I said, okay, let's just go into squatting, you saw better depth, you saw better spinal control, core control, torso was up. And so that for me was a real game changer because it was like, nice, something here to give better input to the brain and better input to the body. And then we started to see those results start to actually stick for once versus having to constantly just try to reestablish it.
Yeah, if I was going to try to figure out why, Dennis, and I'll get your theory on this and you see if I'm on the right track here. Number one, is it like I know Gray and Lee were always doing things with bands before an exercise to say we need to retrain you to activate the core first. That's number one. Number two was strengthening. It's why it sticks. Strengthening in all this whole range, the full range of motion there, and then kind of tricking our body to say, hey, look at this. You actually can get here.
Mhm.
Very similar to like when Gray would show somebody, it's not a mobility problem, and he would put them on the table or the floor, push their knees up to their chest while their arms were
Right.
overhead. Is this why your theory on like why this is working and sticking? Can you just kind of go over that?
Well, for me, we understand, okay, if somebody is on their back, just like what you described, what Gray would do, and you can easily say, okay, well, they have the hip mobility
Yeah.
to actually get into the deep squat, right? What they have on the floor is stability, right? The
Yes.
spine is stable, the rib cage is stable, but then all of a sudden they go vertical, and the brain's all like, "Where's that stability? I need it, right? I don't have it." But what was nice is as soon as I pushed the stick up, literally, I felt that stability right away. And for me, I love the stick because closed chain application, we learn so much better, right? And so when that stick is anchored to the ceiling and your hands are attached to the stick and your feet are grounded, you are locked in. Your brain's like, you're stable. Have at it. Go where you want to go, right? You're good because the brain's now like, I'm not going to fall over. I'm not in a danger zone, right? So let's work on whatever we need to work on while we have this stability and we're locked into place. And so it's like I tell people, like if you take a rubber band and I hold one end on each end, and I have you grab the middle of the rubber band, what can you do with the rubber band? You can do whatever the hell you want with it because I've got it locked in on both ends. So now you can take that rubber band and just go all over the place. Now, if I have that rubber band only attached to one end, well, that rubber band is just going to be flopping around, right? There's no tensegrity there. So for me, it was that let's bring that stability that you need. You have vertical when you have horizontal. Now we have it when we're vertical. And now is through repetition, we can start to increase that neuromuscular control. And then we start to see those changes actually stick permanently. So that way, for some people, they adjust faster. Some people that you'll see those changes stick within, 4 or 5 sessions. Other people may take a couple months, but you'll start to gradually see that they maintain that ability to access that when they need it.
Of it. So let me expand on the isometric piece, please. So a lot of times in isometrics, they'll say, okay, let's just take the squat. You need to like stay in that position. Let's say you're at a 90-degree angle, or let's say your butt's down to 18 inches, right? Or 24 inches. Okay. We need to get strong there. And then in isometrics, right, there's only a certain point. Okay. It's going to go a little past, a little beyond. So we have to go down a little bit lower, get strong there. Then we have to get down a little bit lower, get strong there. But for the most part, my little exposure to some of the stuff, we're moving the whole time, like you just explained. We're not really so in typical, like the way we think of isometrics is we're not really moving. But can you
Yes.
just kind of explain the difference there?
So we use isometrics. We use them both ways. So
Okay.
if we see there's an angle that the person is having some issues with, then yeah, we'll train that area. We'll train that range of motion. So we'll train segmentally, but then once we've trained segmentally, we then want to lock all those segments together. So then it's taking the stick and we're doing what we need to do with it, wall, floor, whatever, push, pull, lock everything in, and now let's go through that whole range of motion with tempo, right? So the tempo's got to be controlled. Want to make sure that they're controlling all the facets of that movement. And so it's segmental first, then we move through the entire movement. So for us, that's we can use isometrics through an entire range of motion, which is, like you said, a little unconventional from what most people would consider isometrics.
Absolutely. Let's talk about breathing. You mentioned breathing. One of the kind of revelations, breathing obviously it's been discussed a lot, but I went to Greg Rose the same morning. So it was a good mobility morning. Greg was doing mobility for rotational athletes, I think it was called. And so when he was going over breathing, he was talking about the joints as well. He said, it's either a muscle a fascia or a joint problem, right? When it's with joints, we want to think distraction. And so he was getting us to breathe through our belly, but not only through the belly, and then fill up those lungs, which I think a lot of us really forgot to do. We got so involved in belly breathing that we're just focused on the belly breathing, and we forgot that you have to fill up those lungs. Yeah. And it goes up, and we're moving our rib cage. And I've seen some really good noticeable difference on people. Talk to me about how you're teaching breathing to start and then within the movements.
So for us, number one focus is just breathe, because a lot of people, when they're getting into a position, they brace and they hold their breath. So we want to remove that first. So I don't care if you chest breathe, belly breathe, mouth breathe, nose breathe. I want to get you into a posture, and I want to make sure you're breathing first and foremost. So I want to make sure that pattern is set first. Once we see that the person, okay, we're good, you're breathing, you're holding posture. Now let's go in and refine the breathing technique. Okay. So I don't want to get people too confused too quickly, right? Where they're like, oh my God, you're telling me to breathe a specific way. All right.
Yeah.
Now that you've established that, now let's close the mouth. Now let's just breathe through the nose, which we know for a lot of people, that's a whole different thing, right? Really difficult for a lot of people, right? So that's the next step that I move on to is, okay, let's try to breathe predominantly through the nose. Now we're going to breathe through the stomach. And as we inhale, yes, we inhale, expand 360 degrees of the abdominal cylinder, but then we have to travel upward into the rib cage and then into the shoulders. So we want to finish up there. We don't want to start there, but we want to finish up there, right? And then also at the same time, it's also teaching them how to exhale, and that exhale then elicits that response through the stabilizing tissues of the back, right? So the first time I ever did that really forceful exhale breathing, where I just you're like push more out, push more out, push more out. The first time I ever experienced that, and I felt the spine erector and the multifidi, I was like, oh my God, holy crap, that's really powerful stuff, right? And so that was one of the key things that really locked me into understanding that breathing, because my traps were chronically tight all the time. Like when I was 20 years old, 25 years old, man, my trap, oh, they were constantly tight. And then I got with a coach who was like, well, you don't breathe very well. And I was like, okay. And so he started telling me about, okay, start to breathe through the stomach, and don't initiate that breath from the shoulders and the chest, right? And as soon as I started to refine that, it was just amazing how that tightness in the traps just dissipated. It was just like boom. And so I was fortunate enough at a relatively young age to experience that and go, okay, this breathing thing's a pretty powerful thing. But then, even getting into the industry, I still didn't teach it, right? Even though I did it myself. And it wasn't until later on where I started saying, okay, now we really need to make sure that clients, it's not just about the exercises, it's not just about the movement, it's about tying in that breathing to help improve the exercise and help improve the movement, right?
Absolutely. I love that you just don't even bother in the beginning, because I think we overwhelm. Here you are, we're putting people in a position, we're trying to get them in a certain position. They already got enough going on. And then we're trying to get them to breathe in through the nose and then we're throwing, timing in there, 4 seconds and then another 4, whatever, we throw a lot of stuff at people. What I really like to, and I think it was because of the interplay with with Greg Rose and seeing you and seeing Greg in the same morning. Greg was using some old Eldoa principles, and I felt like it was similar in stick mobility, only I felt stick mobility. And I have Dan Hellman on next episode to talk all about Eldoa, because I really am fascinated by it. But one thing I did find, and I talked to Dan about this, is it can be very hard to teach, and positions are much harder when you have that stick in your hand, it's kind of like, hey, put your stick on, 3/4 of the way up, or, get your arm in a 45-degree angle. And then we're creating this tension. So we have this length, we have the tension, and we're able to stay in it. Can you talk to me about how fascia how the consideration for fascia? Because I noticed the same thing in both classes. I mean, I was like, wait a minute. In stick mobility, it was much easier. Now, it wasn't easy. It was still, I love your quote. It's mobility work. It was not easy.
Yeah.
But I felt mentally, I learned it quicker. I was like, is my hand in the right position when I'm doing some of the Eldoa stuff? My hand in the right, am I turned right, whatever. Talk to me about your consideration for fascia when you're designing these exercises and programs for mobility.
So for us with the stick, it just gives better feedback, right? So when we need to get somebody, when we're looking to take fascia and put it into a certain position or a certain direction, then we can say, okay, what joint position, what articulation do we need that limb in to facilitate that feeling, that feedback? And then we can put that person in that position in guidance with the stick, right? And now that we've got that person in that position to get that fascia in the direction that we want, then we say, okay, now let's push and pull, right? So now we've guided the fascia. Now let's light it up, right? Let's start to bring some strength into that fascia, right? Let's get the muscles in the fascia to integrate together. And so that for us is the stick is a great guidance tool, and it gives really good feedback. I like to tell coaches, look, it's like being a computer programmer. If I want my computer program to give me a certain output, well, then I'm solely responsible for that output. So if I don't give the program the right input, then my program is not going to give me what I want, right? So the same with coaching. If I want my client to give me a certain output, well, then my job is to give that person the proper input. And with the stick, it's such a great tool to be able to do that for a person in a really simple way and not overcomplicate things, right? Because we know that clients don't have very good body awareness. It just doesn't exist, right? So then that way with the stick, we can put them in that posture, that position, or that joint angle. And we can say, okay, do you feel this? And they go, oh, yeah, I feel that. Okay, right away, we know, okay, feedback's good. Now that we've got you there, now let's start to push. Now let's start to pull. And now that person goes, oh, like perfect example, packing the shoulders, right? We have people hang and we get people, okay, now pack the shoulders, pull the scapula down, and people like, I have no idea what you're talking
Yeah.
about, right? But with the sticks, we can put those limbs in that position, and then we simply say, okay, now push the sticks down into the floor at about 50-60% of your max effort. Oh, okay. Do you feel the lats? Do you feel the rib cage? Do you feel those tissues supporting the ribs contract and come under tension? They're like, yeah. Do you feel the shoulder blades pull down? I do. Cool. Now you've learned how to pack your shoulders.
Love it.
Right.
Yeah, I
So
think.
now you say, okay, right. And then you're going, okay, now the connective tissue, the fascia from the hands through the wrist, through the elbow, into the shoulder. Now they're integrated. They're locked in. Now we can add some articulation. We can add some internal, external rotation. And for us, it's just building resiliency through that fascia to handle whatever it needs to be able to handle.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're going in so many different positions. Again, that's what I meant before about the nuance of when you have those sticks in your hand. If you look at it from the outside, you're thinking, okay, they're just using a stick to gain a little length, but there's so much more going on with that tension, with those hand positions, with the push and the pull. I want to go over the last thing from really the factors that I really, from the class that I learned. Another one was timing. I want you to go over what your thoughts are. We've heard so much, like if you go to FRC, it will be, okay, you're going to stay in this position for about 2 minutes. and then you're going to do you're going to push your, if you're in the 90-90, the famous 90-90 FRC stretch, you're going to, it seems like that's the only, like if you, the only one anybody ever shows, that 90-90 hip stretch, right? I told Dre that one day. I'm like, are you guys teaching any other exercises? Cause this is all anybody comes back with. But, so I think, it's to hold 2 to 3 minutes. Then it's like that 20-second, push in, then 20-second pull. And then I've heard, okay, go back and sit there for another 2 minutes. So talk to us, your thoughts on timing of these exercises, how long you want somebody to hold. What about the tension? Go over your protocol for that.
So if we're using the stick to dynamically warm you up, then let's say the lateral bow and arrow, the slap shot, all these moves that you'll see on our social media and our YouTube channel, right? So if we're doing dynamic, then yes, we're moving in and out, right? We're starting slow. We then start to build up speed, increasing range of motion. But then we go back at the end of the workout and we use those same exact moves to downregulate, right? So now we go into the slap shot, the lateral bow and arrow. Now I tell the client, okay, let's do 3 holds. Let's do 30 seconds each hold. Maybe it's even a little less. Okay. So for me, it's more about how much restriction does the person have. If the person has a lot of restriction along that line, then yeah, I'd like to have that person hold that position a little bit longer. If it's just more of just, okay, let's finish this with a nice stretch. We know the lateral line doesn't really get addressed a lot. Then but that person doesn't have restrictions to the lateral line. Then I'll say, you know what, give me three reps and hold each one for a 15-second count. Right. So I think for me, it's more about the skill of the individual that I'm working with. But yeah, the longer we stay in it, then of course, the more time we have to make those changes. So very much like what Dre says with the 2-minute hold. Yeah. If during the session, if I'm trying to reestablish a new pattern or better positioning, yeah, then I'll have that person hold that position for a substantial amount of time. But once again, just like Dre says, it's also about not just hanging out passively, though. We're pushing her on the stick because, like for us in the 90-90 position that everybody has a love-hate relationship with, right? We know people get people in the 90-90, they can't stack their torso on their hips, their torso leaks out to the side. For us, we use the stick to help them stack the torso, right? So we're using the stick vertically to hang on and then pulling the ribs to get the rib cage to sit on top of the hips again, right? So now if that's the case, I want to hold that person there for that longer duration. I want to get everything familiar and really let the body know that it's okay to be there, right? Because for a lot of people, their body's like, oh, I don't want to be here. They're like, I would rather leak out to the side because that's really easy. So it's like, okay, let's get you into this position. The stick is there. It's added stability. You're not going to go anywhere. Nothing bad's going to happen. So now let's work on your breath work and let's hold this position for a longer duration, right? The client doesn't really enjoy it because it's not fun by any means, okay? But now we're at least making those changes that hopefully then over a period of time we'll start to see them stick, right? And the thing is this is stuff that I want them to do on their own, which of course we'll know if they're doing it on their own because we'll see those changes relatively quickly if they're consistent with their practice.
Absolutely. A lot of stuff we went over today. So here's what I want you to do. Just give everybody almost like a wrap up, an overview when you're trying to teach about these concepts. Like when you're talking about mobility, some things that maybe, again, just an overview of some of the things you talked about, whether that's the isometric resistance, you have to take the fascia into consideration, the breathing, the time. Just give us a summary of everything before I let you go. I want to wrap everything up in a nice bow.
So for us, mobility work is just that. It needs to be work. It needs to take some effort. If you're doing mobility work and you're not sweating, and you're just laying around, there's a lot of better things that you can be doing with your time, right? So for us, it's when you get into a posture and you get into an end range and you're trying to increase range of motion, you need to be able to express force in that range of motion to really start to own it. Whether that's moving out away from that range of motion or coming back in from that end range of motion, you need to be able to own both. We're looking for you to be able to breathe. We want to make sure that you're not bracing and as a compensation for 'em. So that's the other thing that we're looking for. And really for us, it's just about consistency. Doing this on a consistent basis will really be the key thing to helping you move and improve your movement better. Because that's one of the big questions that we always get from people. How often should I do this? And my answer is simple. It's you move every day. So whether even if it's even just 10 minutes a day, give yourself 10 minutes a day. Mobility work doesn't have to be a full hour, right? If you have that time, great. Most of us, look, we want other stuff to do and workouts. So that's great. Do your traditional workouts, do what you need to do. But then dedicate that 10, 15, 20 minutes to yourself to really help make sure that you're moving well. And if you move well, you'll feel much better. So those are the things that we want to keep at the forefront of everybody's thought process.
Absolutely. And I just want to reiterate, this was not just like some commercial, interview where we're just trying to promote stick mobility. I had such a great experience in a live. That's, by the way, quick side note. This is why you want to go to live events. I was able to experience Dennis's great coaching and get a chance because I had the sticks and I wanted to get it from the master. And this is why you go to these live events. But these, you really feel the difference. Just take even a half kneeling hip stretch. When you're doing these things, you're going to really feel the difference in your hip, in your whole body. It's like night and day. So highly recommend it that you check this stuff out. They have so many free resources too online, YouTube and their Instagram with all the different exercises. But they also have some great courses. So Dennis, thank you so much for taking some time talking to us all about mobility. Love what you're doing over there, bud.
Anthony, thank you for having me. This is one of I've listened to this podcast for a long time, and it's an honor to be on finally. So thank you very much.
All right, I'm just glad you weren't mad because I'm an Islander fan, but I'll be rooting. Oh, I'll slightly be rooting for you.
No, anybody but the Flyers.
There you go.
All I care about. Anybody but the Flyers.
All right, that's going to do for episode 367 of the Strength Coach Podcast. Guys, the show notes are located at strengthcoachpodcast.com. Don't forget, you can try out the new strengthcoach.com for 7 days for free. Special thanks to Chris Parry and the folks over at Perform Better, including the facility design team. They do it all when it comes to facility design, whether you're opening a small studio, sports performance gym, or a rehab facility. They do the work from layout to installation to create the facility that'll best meet your needs and budget. Guys, check it all out at performbetter.com. You can see some really cool videos there of what they can do. Thanks to Coach Boyle and Dennis Dunphy sharing their insights and philosophies into the world of strength conditioning and performance enhancement and mobility. Thanks to Sumit Seth and Namli helping build relationships through personalized communication so your members stay longer and pay longer. Go to namli.com, use the referral code StrengthCoach to get started on a free 30-day trial. Thanks to AG1 from Athletic Greens. Visit athleticgreens.com/strengthcoach and get your free year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs today. That's going to do it for this episode. My name's Anthony Renna. Thanks for listening, and I'll speak to you next time.